The action in the Grapefruit League continues on as we have a chance to get our first look at what this Philadelphia Phillies team will look like this season. And there is some great news in that conversation as Cristopher Sanchez is absolutely shining down there in spring training. In addition, we have some increased optimism for Taijuan Walker, who is showing some increased velocity in his fastball there. Doing a breakdown latest for each of these pitchers and why I believe that we're just getting started talking about the strength of this Phillies pitching staff. That while we talk plenty about the upgrades this offseason, this may have a real chance at being the best pitching staff in all of baseball. We're gonna get into all of that in this video here, but before I fully dive into it, do want to remind you guys to make sure you are smashing that subscribe button. That at this point in time, 71.4% of you guys tuning into these videos have not subscribed to us here on Phillies Digest just yet. If you like what we're doing, we're gonna have even more coming as the real season is right on the horizon. So make sure you're joining that Phillies Digest family. Now, to set the table for what I want to discuss today, I won't be too deep into the Taijuan Walker weeds to this point. He did allow a home run. There was increased velocity, a little bit of a mixed bag of results, I will say there. Shout out to our guy, Luke Arcaney, who obviously is my co-host right here on Phillies Digest. He was watching the game live and believed it was kind of a tip-the-hat type home run. I didn't fully see the clip. I'm having a brutal time trying to find. I was able to watch today's game, which was really nice. That one just right there on the cable television. But they make it pretty difficult to watch this game, particularly live here. So did not particularly see Taijuan Walker pitch there. Did read the reports that he's hitting 94 on his fastball. That is really encouraging based on the fact that he was only in the low 80 or the high 80s last year at his peak, but that's still going to be kind of causing some issues at the major league level. So the jury's still out in the Taijuan Walker discussion, but did want to highlight our guy, Cristopher Sanchez. So when we talk about Cristopher Sanchez, it really was the breakout story. I think the biggest story surrounding this entire Phillies team was the success that we saw from Sanchez last year. And in his 31 games that he did pitch in, 181.2 innings, allowed just 11 home runs, 153 strikeouts, 182 hits allowed, a 3.32 ERA, a 1.244 whip there. Still just 28 years old and coming into his own as a pitcher. I'm really excited about Cristopher Sanchez, and he's giving us plenty of reason for that to be the case. So to dive into exactly what that is, I want to start off with this article. Shout out to Kenneth Trace here, who writes, Philadelphia Phillies all-star pitcher taking performance to a new level. A Philadelphia Phillies all-star hurler has showcased improved stuff out of the gate in spring training. And it continues on to write, against the Tampa Bay Rays in his debut on February 25th, he fired 2 scoreless innings, striking out 3 with only 1 hit allowed. In his second outing, the Baltimore Orioles were able to scratch out 2 runs, 1 earned on 2 hits and 1 walk. Despite being scored upon for the first time in the exhibition season, Sanchez's stuff was even nastier this time out than the first. His pro stuff plus was 113, a very strong mark. He also generated an elite 40.9% whiff rate, and the Orioles didn't manage to barrel up a single pitch as he had a 0.0% barrel rate. All 4 of his pitches, the sinker, changeup, cutter, and slider, were operating at a high level with pro stuff plus scores ranging from 108 up to 125, all well above the average numbers. And to continue on some of this here, that Cristopher Sanchez is consistently hitting 98 miles per hour with his sinker. That pitch averaged 94.5 miles per hour last year for what it's worth. Shout out to Tim Kelly of On Patterson there. And another little stat here from John Foley, shout out to him, says Cristopher Sanchez will be throwing 110 miles per hour in 2027 if these trends continue. So in 2023, his average fastball velocity was 92.1 miles per hour. In 2024, his average fastball velocity 94.5 miles per hour. And then today, he's hitting 98.3, 98.1, 98.1, 98.0, 97.8. That is a big leap for a guy, particularly at this stage in his MLB career. Now, granted, I'm not going to be over the top or be telling you that he's going to hit 98 miles per hour consistently every game moving forward. It is true that this is a fresh arm, that he's throwing limited innings, that he does not have to save himself, but the fact that that is in his bag, that Cristopher Sanchez can now do that, I think is incredibly encouraging. Now, we've talked a lot about this Phillies team, how when they shifted into this era, that the mindset was, we're going to outscore people, that we're going to hit home runs and we're going to rip in runs and score runs at a rate that you cannot match us. It does feel like that pendulum is swinging directly to the other side, that pitching could turn out to be this core of this Phillies team identity moving forward. And to kind of highlight that depth chart as a whole here, do want to pull that up, that of course there is Zack Wheeler holding things at the top. Of course, Aaron Nola right in that same mix. We know what those two bring at the top there. but Cristopher Sanchez very clearly in the same mix. Ranger Suarez, we've seen him pitch at an all-star caliber level, had some of his biggest moments when the lights are their brightest at the biggest stage for this Phillies team. Jesus Luzardo will be very interesting. We've seen very little of him to this point, but he is a guy that if he is pitching his best, has every opportunity to be a one-end type of starter, and that doesn't even bring in Andrew Painter to the mix, who is a guy that is expected to be top end of the rotation stuff when he ultimately settles, a potential number one for the foreseeable future. These are a lot of talented arms on this Phillies team, and frankly, if you pin me down right now and had me ask what is the full rotation, if I were to just straight up rank these guys 1 through 6, I don't know if I have a clear answer for you, and this goes without acknowledging Taijuan Walker, of course, sort of in that same mix. I don't think it is quite fair to hold Taijuan in the same light, and I think everyone's coming to that realization. Will be pretty interesting to see what they end up doing with him. My honest guess, I think he probably sticks around in the bullpen or for some long relief. There's always those games where, the game's getting out of hand early and you got to burn pitchers, so I don't think he's the worst guy to just have sticking around with this Phillies franchise, but I do think the clear takeaway from an organizational standpoint as they have shifted past the Taijuan Walker just being any part of the game plan here. That while he was signed with the intention of being a clear-cut fifth starter, a guy that you can rely on every time it is his turn in the rotation, that has not proven to be the case, and I do commend this organization for being proactive to address that and willing to take it. That we've seen other organizations and in baseball and other sports as well, that when you commit this level of money to a guy, you're not willing to move past it because you're still paying him. Taijuan Walker is still going to be making his money, but the fact that they've sort of moved off and created a plan B here, I do commend them. Now, to get back to the Phillies pitching staff as a whole, doing a highlight, of course, that we did see what Cristopher Sanchez did last year, but throw a little bit more love to Taijuan and particularly how significant of this bounce back would be. These were the results last year, that he pitched in just 19 games, 83.2 innings pitched, 24 home runs, and 58 strikeouts. That is brutal stuff there. 107 hits. That's a 7.1 ERA, a 1.7 hit whip there. And what brings me to my biggest concern about Taijuan is it's not like this is a guy who, can get hit around a little bit. He gets whacked when things are going bad, and particularly it's home runs. Like, he looks like he gives up home runs at the easiest rate about any professional pitcher that I can remember. I do hope that the increased velocity can change that to an extent. I would love for him to be salvageable and have some sort of, secondary arc on this Phillies team. But the reality is, once again, I commend this Phillies team for not being stuck in their ways here. And I think the story does swing to this overall depth chart of this Phillies team. That I think this being such a clear advantage of having this amount of names that you can go to is huge for this Phillies team. And also thinking long term, that obviously Zack Wheeler and Nola, they are guys that are still pitching at the top of their game. I'm not saying that this sort of regression is happening right now, but it will be at some point. And sometimes it hits you at a pretty inopportune time. So the fact that you have these guys waiting in the wing, the Andrew Painter is ready to come up. Jesus Luzardo still plenty young in his career. Ranger Suarez, Cristopher Sanchez have plenty of positive pitching seasons still ahead of them. It is nice that there is this clear pathway to keeping this rotation salvageable. But for the short term, I do believe each and every one of these guys should be competing to want to be considered the best pitcher on this Phillies staff. That I'm a big believer that competition brings out the best in everyone, and that's sort of the method of the madness, I think, of Dave Dombrowski, that each of these guys have a chance to earn their spot. That in reality here, there are some looming conversations. For example, Andrew Painter will be pitching at the major league level at some point this season. As things are currently constructed, that is 6 starting caliber pitchers there, and it will be interesting what the decisions could be made. I think the most likely outcome would likely be Ranger Suarez swinging back to a little bit more of a bullpen role. I personally have said this plenty. I'm very much in favor of the 6-man rotation idea where you limit the wear and tear on these guys' arms throughout the season. My understanding is it does seem like Zack Wheeler and Nola in particular have pushed back at that game plan and prefer to keep the routine of pitching every 5 days. Well, I can respect that and understand that from just keeping your routine standpoint. My full mindset would be, I want you guys to be pitching your best when it is the playoffs, when the moment is the largest. And if that means taking a day off one more time a week, then just sign up and do it, is kind of how I feel. But all that it depends on when Andrew Painter is ready. And we still haven't got kind of a clear answer of that. It does seem like this is inching closer till summer, somewhere around that timeline would be the expectation. But that is a guy that if he's ready from day one, throw him in the mix, man. Let's make some things happen. So I'm very much love the optionality, the variety that this team is starting to have from a pitching standpoint. I do think that iron sharpens iron from the stance of each of these guys are competing with each other, are learning from each other, are delivering on the mound. And I think that's beginning to be the identity of this Phillies team is they're going to be a pitcher first type organization. So we will see how long that process overall takes. But do want to hear from you guys, your level of love for Cristopher Sanchez. Are you as all in as I am? That I think there's a real chance that that guy's the straight up number 2 on this team. That I think there's a world where he could outpitch Aaron Nola this season, but we will see. Ultimately, it is up to him to go out there and take that opportunity. And it is up to you guys. Make sure you are hitting that subscribe button here on Phillies Digest. So once again, do appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning into these videos. We're going to have plenty more content coming out with the season beginning to inch closer on the horizon. So just 28.6% of you guys watching these videos have subscribed thus far. Let's get those numbers growing. Let's keep this Phillies Digest family alive. I'll be back talking with you next time right here on the channel. Peace.